Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns and Jasmine Wright, reporter at Notice. So, Dasha, what can we expect to hear from the former president today?
Well, it'll be interesting, Jose. Look, he has not been out on the campaign trail this week. Instead, his running mate, J.D. Vance, has been doing the counter-programming to Harris and Walz. Vance said that their strategy is, quote, divide and conquer when asked about why former President Trump wasn't out there with him. And he has not been in the headlines, at least not for anything positive this week. And recently, Harris and Walz have been very much in the spotlight. It's something that the former president isn't used to. So look for him today to reclaim the spotlight, to try to garner some headlines and to try to build up a contrast, potentially make some news as he pivots his strategy to a new ticket, to Harris and Walz, a very different ticket than he was running against before President Biden dropped out. And you have seen him, Jose, in real time, try to recalibrate, try to use different attacks to see what might stick for voters. I expect to see some of that today, Jose.
And Jasmine, meanwhile, is the vice president planning on holding her own news conference anytime soon?
Yeah, Jose. Well, I think that is actually the question of the hour. So it is not that she hasn't engaged press, but it has certainly been on the vice president's own terms, as kind of it has been for the last 3 years that she's been vice president. She goes back and she talks to the press on the plane. Those are typically off the record comments. If she does want to make a statement on the news of the day, we've seen her approach the press waiting under the wing of Air Force Two to give a statement, but then she turns away before questions, before answering any questions. And so I think that the public is expecting, or certainly the media is expecting, for her to engage more with reporters now that she has replaced Biden at the top of the ticket. Now, I know just covering her the last really 6 years that her engagements with the press are varied. Certainly as she's been vice president, we've known that we've seen some kind of damaging moments when her speaking to the press, particularly that first interview she did in 2021 with Lester Holt about her work on immigration. And so I think that that is something that's always been on the mind of her office and the vice president herself. Of course, we've reported that she has been doing some media training over her vice presidency. So I think that that's a major question, and time really, is running short for her to kind of present herself in front of the media.
Yeah, although she's been doing a very good job of presenting herself in front of thousands of people in events throughout and much of these very critical states. She has, yesterday in Michigan, Jasmine, she was interrupted by protesters at her rally there, thousands of people there. Some protesters chanted things like, you can't hide, we don't vote for genocide and free Palestine. Here's how she responded. Take a listen.
You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
What do you make of that moment?
Yeah, Jose, it's actually really funny because after I saw that clip, I texted some of my other former Kamala embeds, and I said, raise your hand if you've received that look before when asking her a question. That is who the vice president is. She is a prosecutor, and she wants to come across strong, and she wants to have her voice heard. Now, before that clip happened, she actually did listen to the protesters. She has been empathetic with pro-Gaza protesters since October 7th. And I think that that's something that you can expect to continue. But it's certainly going to raise a question of potentially why she wasn't more prepared, or why she didn't take a more agreeable route maybe with these protesters, particularly knowing how difficult it was for Biden to recoup credibility with them after his actions post October 7th. Really, that was kind of a thorn in his side when he had those major rallies. Protesters continued to prop up and disrupt. So I think that they're going to have to really calculate how they want her to respond in these moments. Obviously, they don't want to offend these pro-Gaza protesters, but the vice president also wants to be able to deliver her message to those 12,000, 15,000 rallies where people really want to hear her speak.
Yeah, I mean, and Dasha, lastly, former President Trump has recently criticized Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Walz, over his handling of the George Floyd protests back in 2020. NBC got a new audio from June 2020. What does that audio tell us?
Yeah, Jose, this is part of that real-time recalibration that I've been talking about as they're trying out these different attacks. The former president has been criticizing Governor Walz over his response. He and his allies have been posting online. He posted to Truth Social saying that Governor Walz, quote, let Minnesota burn in the aftermath. But we got some new audio of him praising Governor Walz in the aftermath and during those riots. Take a listen.
I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I spoke to the governor. The governor is, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard in big numbers. They didn't at first.
So now the Trump campaign is defending those comments. His spokesperson telling us that days after the riots began, that was when the phone call happened, and that President Trump acknowledged Governor Walz for finally taking action to deploy the National Guard to end the violence in the city, and then reiterating some of the former president's talking points, criticizing how the governor handled that and saying he let Minnesota burn after the former president offered to deploy soldiers after cries for help from the mayor of Minneapolis.